This is our project on the extinction of the bees. I'm Alex Jones.
I'm Olivia Beattie.
And I'm Alex Vaughan.
We are currently in the 6th great extinction, the Holocene extinction. And this extinction has been killing off large numbers of both plants and animals. And this has largely been caused by human activity, such as global warming, habitat destruction, pollution, and general human development. And one of the most affected groups of species are the bees. And there are currently around 250 bee species in the UK. The most commercially used is Apis mellifera, the honeybee. And all species, not just the honeybee, are currently under threat in the UK, and there are no more properly wild bees, and they are all managed by hobbyists and beekeepers in hives. And this isn't just a UK issue, but a worldwide issue, as seen in the US as well, as in the last half decade, 30% of the bee population in the US has died, and in some states they've lost up to 70%. And this is a big risk because a loss of a bee population can have a massive knock-on effect on the ecosystem and our food production, as we rely on bees for up to a third of our food production, and the bee economy is worth anywhere between 235 billion and 577 billion per year. And so what's causing this declining population?
The absolute main reason for the declining bee population is due to the phenomenon known as CCD, aka colony collapse disorder. This is where worker bees abandon their queen, leaving a lack of healthy adult bees. CCD was first observed in 2006, and from then till 2011, an average colony loss of 33% was observed in the US per year. There are multiple theories about the causes of CCD, however it's believed that this phenomenon occurs due to the impact of multiple different factors. Many of the factors implicating CCD are linked to unsuitable agricultural practices. However, pathogens and climate change also have an effect. One of the most damaging practices is through the use of harmful insecticides, especially that of neonics. Neonics are extensively used to control pests of economically important crops. In 2008, neonics comprised 80% of the worldwide insecticide seed treatment market. Active compounds from the insecticides are taken up through plant tissues, which then can be potentially digested by bees when feeding on pollen. Neonics have been set to cut the number of eggs containing brood cells by 46%, as well as weakening immune response and thereby making populations more vulnerable. The harmful effect of neonics was realised, and in 2013 the EU put a 2-year ban on use of insecticides to help benefit both wild and commercial bee populations. This ban is still continuing today, however locally in Essex and Suffolk the ban is no longer in place. The ban of insecticides had had large negative effects on crop production and yields locally. This meant the government reconsidered the ban and reintroduced neonics back into these two counties. Even with the bee population in such a worrying state nationally, the government felt this was a necessary practice even with such a large environmental issue at hand. Other pesticides also proved to have damaging consequences on the bee populations and have been associated with atypical bee behaviour. In total, 50% of the population decline is linked to pesticide use. Apart from pesticides, other agricultural practices also have implications on bee populations. Global rapid population growth has meant agricultural practices had to previously change in order to increase food production. Tech advancement led to removal of hedgerows as well as a 97% decline in flower-rich grasslands. The implication of removing the main food source of bees was an obvious significant decline in the population. Habitat destruction of woodlands to meet housing demands and for cash crop production has led to decreased habitat availability for bees, as well as provides the bees with less pollinating opportunity. One other factor implicating CCD is the presence of the parasitic varroa mite. These have been known to transmit fatal viruses as well as called paralysis. One final factor that also has a large implication is that of climate change. Climate change has meant that the flowering patterns of plant has moved earlier on in the year. Once bees come out of hibernations, it means that a majority of flowers may be dead, thereby meaning a decrease in food availability, which has obvious implications on the population.
And these causes listed by Alex have pushed bees to the tipping point, and if pushed past the tipping point, these effects, as listed by Live Now, will be felt.
The biggest impact has been the decline in the population. British bees, for example, have dropped 1/3 since 2007, and in conjunction with the loss of other pollinators has the potential to increase in food prices due to the production shortage. There's an estimated loss of $235 to $577 billion in global crops should extinction occur, and the result of this would be that only wheat, corn and oats remain. The second biggest impact is the loss of biodiversity through trophic cascade, primarily because of CCD. The implication of this is seen in the wild and is used as a mirror for the effects on agriculture, as mentioned above. Mutualism between bees and flora, such as fruit and veg, means that the removal of bees would result in the loss of several species of flora. A paper entitled "The Tolerance of Pollination Networks to Species Extinctions" demonstrated that the removal of individual pollinators resulted in the greatest rate of decline in plants. Biodiversity loss can also be directly seen within the bees themselves, as there are no longer any wild bees and all are kept in artificial hives. As ecosystems become less diverse, the stability will decrease according to the diversity stability hypothesis, and according to the diversity productivity hypothesis, the ecosystems will become less productive due to the removal of primary producers. There is very little research on the effect of the potential extinction of pollinators. As seen with the estimated economic loss, they are only ballpark figures, and all suggested ideas are only hypotheses. As such, there is the potential for the loss to be even worse than expected, but what is clear is that we are currently at a tipping point.
As shown by Olivia, the future of bees does not look bright unless we take some serious steps to save the bees. The government needs to step up and help the conservation effort like some other countries are by subsidising beekeepers and hobbyists. The government is also harming bees directly through their policies on pesticides and farming, as explained by bee expert Paul White at East Berkholt Bees.
Is there anything that you believe the government can do to resolve this?
The government is driven by financial lobbies, and the biggest lobby is the National Farming Union. And unfortunately, the National Farming Union are driven by the ability to create crops. And crops require insecticides. So the government isn't listening to the fact that our bees are dying and all pollinators are dying, and they are wavering on the control of insecticides. A stronger voice and an education in the fact that we can't just blanket spray and kill off bugs just because we want more crops. That's the first thing. The second thing is there appears to be a cost cutting across everywhere in the world, and our government wants to cut bee inspectors and local health teams try and stop the diseases. They try and stop the predators. There's a warning of a hornet, an Asian hornet coming in. Those bee inspectors from the government would stop that. And of course, if we have just one more thing that predates on the bees, that will kill off the population. There's a need. It's always a little bit of money and a little bit of control.
Another step to stop the use of pesticides and insecticides is to continue researching them, to continue to improve them and find better alternatives that don't harm the bees. Another proven effective conservation method is encouraging positive breeding methods. By breeding properly, the genetic pool should be separated as far as possible, making the bees genetically strong, as strong genes will make the bees more resistant to pesticides and climate change. Another conservation method is to limit human expansion throughout woodland areas, where bees thrive the best, by removing woodland for both housing and agriculture, where destructive cash crops are grown and pesticides are used, which can be lethal for Britain's bees. By carrying out all of these conservation methods and encouraging everyday people to pick up beekeeping as a hobby which is relatively cheap, easy and effective, bees can be turned away from their tipping point.
And as last thing, what do you think the future is for bees?
I think it's questionable at the moment because I don't think the government and the pesticide manufacturers care enough about the environment. What they care about is their bottom line, their profit. And until such times as we learn to look after our environment and the insects that live within it, I have a feeling that we're going to struggle. And like anything else, there are lots and lots of animals becoming extinct. It could be that we'll have just pet bees and they won't be performing the function of pollination in time. So, do I feel it's a rosy future? Well, at the moment, it seems like a war.
Yeah.